Imagine waking up one day and realizing that the pain you've been trying to escape is the very thing you can't stop returning to. Not because it comforts you, not because it heals, but because without it, you wouldn't know who you are. You don't wear your pain on your sleeve. You bury it deep. You laugh. You perform. You smile when you're supposed to. But under it all, there's something heavier, a familiar ache you don't talk about, even to yourself. And here's the terrifying part. What if you've grown addicted to that pain? Not in some dramatic or obvious way, but quietly, repetitively, in the choices you make, in the people you chase, in the thoughts you entertain when no one's watching. You say you want peace, yet sabotage calm when it comes. You say you want love, but run from those who offer it freely. You say you want to heal, but somehow the wound stays open. Why? Because pain is familiar, predictable. In a chaotic world, your suffering became structure. And structure, no matter how damaging, feels safer than the unknown. Maybe you don't chase pain for pleasure. Maybe you chase it for certainty. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." And isn't that what we do? Distract ourselves, fill the silence, rehearse the same inner script again and again, just to avoid meeting what lives beneath it all. But what if the real reason you cling to pain is because it's the only thing that feels real? We've come to equate intensity with truth, struggle with depth, suffering with meaning. So we keep suffering, not because we're weak, but because it gives us something to hold on to. And here's the paradox. You hate the pain, but you trust it more than peace. So ask yourself, if your suffering disappeared overnight, would you even recognize yourself without it? Would you still feel significant? Still feel worthy? What if healing isn't just uncomfortable? What if it's identity shattering? Because letting go of your pain means letting go of the version of you built around it. And who are you without that? That's the great question. The one most people never answer, because they're too busy surviving the story they never wrote. But keep living anyway. So before we talk about freedom, we need to ask, do you actually want to heal? Or do you just want the pain to hurt a little less? You weren't born attached to pain. You learned it. It didn't come crashing in all at once. It crept in quietly. A punishment for speaking your truth. A cold silence after expressing emotion. The lesson was clear. Pain is the price for being real. So you adapted. You smiled to avoid rejection. You hid your needs to stay safe. And over time, pain stopped being the enemy. It became identity. You didn't know it then, but your nervous system was keeping score. Every betrayal, every dismissal, every subtle invalidation etched itself into your wiring. And eventually you stopped looking for love. You started looking for what felt familiar. Carl Jung called this the shadow. The parts of ourselves we exile because they were once punished or ignored. But what we suppress doesn't disappear. It festers. It drives our behavior from the dark. And when left unexamined, that shadow becomes the silent force behind your choices. Why do you feel most alive in chaos? Why does peace feel boring? Why do you trust your pain more than your joy? Because the brain loves patterns, especially painful ones. They're predictable, familiar, safe. It doesn't care if the pattern hurts you. It only cares if it's known. Modern psychology calls it emotional reinforcement. You unconsciously repeat suffering because it confirms the beliefs you formed long ago. I'm not enough. I always ruin things. I don't deserve better. And here's the kicker. Your brain seeks evidence to prove those beliefs true. Not because they are true, but because your identity is built around them. Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "We are unknown to ourselves, we knowers." You don't just carry pain. You live through it. It becomes the lens through which you see the world. Even your ambitions are shaped by it. You chase success not to thrive, but to outrun your shame. You want love not to connect, but to soothe an old abandonment. And when you fail, a part of you sighs with relief. See? I knew I wasn't good enough. This isn't just trauma, it's a loop, a self-fulfilling prophecy your subconscious keeps rehearsing. Not because you're broken, but because somewhere along the line, pain became the only version of real you ever trusted. And now it's not just a feeling, it's a foundation. But what if it doesn't have to be? Before you can break the cycle, you need to see it, not with judgment, but with absolute honesty. That's where transformation begins. Not in blame, in awareness. The most dangerous addictions are the ones we don't even recognize. You don't call it addiction. You call it personality. You say, that's just how I am. But what if that's not how you are? What if that's just how your pain has shaped you? Because this is how it hides. In your choices, in the way you brace for rejection before it even happens, in the way you downplay your wins and magnify your flaws, in how you find comfort in people who hurt you, simply because they remind you of your past. Unhealed pain doesn't just sit quietly in your chest, it directs your life. You think you're choosing your relationships, your career, your beliefs, but really you're following an old script written by wounds you never gave yourself permission to question. And because those wounds feel so familiar, you mistake them for truth. This is what psychologists call confirmation bias, the brain's tendency to find evidence for what it already believes. So if your belief is, I'm not worthy, you'll unconsciously sabotage opportunities, attract unavailable people, and ignore love when it's freely offered, just to prove the belief right. Not because you want to suffer, but because being right about your pain feels safer than being wrong about your healing. Even peace becomes suspicious. You second-guess moments of calm. You overanalyze kindness. Because if things feel too good, your nervous system gets triggered. It's learned to expect the fall, so it creates one. And this doesn't just live in your mind, it lives in your body, in clenched jaws, racing thoughts, shallow breath. Your trauma shows up in your posture, your digestion, your sleepless nights. You call it stress, burnout, fatigue. But it's deeper than that. It's a body that never felt safe letting go. We glorify resilience in this world, wear pain like armor and call it strength. But strength without healing becomes a cage. You survive everything except yourself. So ask yourself, how many times have you turned away from love because it felt unfamiliar? How many dreams have you abandoned because success felt unworthy of you? How often do you confuse exhaustion with purpose? These are the unseen consequences, not dramatic, but daily, not loud, but relentless. And the longer you go without seeing them, the deeper they embed. But here's the good news. What was learned can be unlearned. What was automatic can be rewired. But first, you have to stop calling it normal. Stop calling it just who I am. Because that voice telling you to settle in your suffering, it's not your soul. It's your story. And stories can be rewritten. You've been taught that healing is gentle, that freedom comes wrapped in light and clarity. But here's the truth. Healing is war, not with the world, but with the self you built to survive it. And war doesn't begin with victory. It begins with doubt. The moment you start to question, why do I shrink when I should speak? Why do I ache when I rest? Why do I feel most alive when I'm suffering? That's the fracture where light enters. Because your old self, the one addicted to pain, doesn't die with peace. It dies with resistance. It dies when you refuse to keep playing the same script. So how do you rebel? Start by telling the truth to yourself, brutally, without flinching. Say it out loud. I don't know who I am without my pain. I've confused being hurt with being deep. I'm afraid to heal because healing means I can no longer blame. Then sit in the silence after those confessions. Let them tear the false skin from your soul, because clarity doesn't arrive through comfort. It arrives through fire. You must confront the part of you that doesn't want to change, the part that craves chaos because calm feels unfamiliar, the part that finds identity in victimhood. You don't kill that part. You integrate it. You say, I see you. I understand why you exist, but you no longer get to drive. That is inner rebellion, not rage, not revenge, but responsibility. You stop looking for someone to fix you. You stop hoping the world will validate your wounds. And you start walking, limping, crawling, stumbling toward a self that isn't defined by suffering. You take ownership of your triggers, of your patterns, of your freedom, because no one can walk you out of the maze you built. You built it. You must dismantle it. Not all at once, but choice by choice, moment by moment. And when you fall back into old pain, which you will, you don't shame yourself. You recognize it. You say, this again, and you choose differently. That's what freedom looks like, not perfection, but pattern breaking. That is the rebellion, not loud, not easy, but real. And once you begin, you will never unsee the path. There comes a moment, quiet, subtle, where you stop asking, how do I fix myself? And instead wonder, was I ever truly broken? That's the truth they never told you. That beneath all the pain, the patterns, the false identities, there is nothing wrong with you. There never was. The real you isn't wounded. It's buried. And the purpose of all this, the introspection, the unraveling, the rebellion, was never to become someone new. It was to remember who you were before the world taught you to forget. You don't need to earn your worth. You were born with it. But they made you forget with shame, silence, and systems that fed on your insecurity. You believed you had to become something to matter, to be loved, to belong. But the final realization is this: you are not your pain. You are the awareness that survives it. And once you see that, really see it, something irreversible happens. You stop clinging. You stop performing. You stop fighting shadows. Because shadows only grow when you chase them. But when you turn on the light, they dissolve. This is not about becoming invulnerable. It's about becoming real. Healing doesn't mean you'll never hurt again. It means the hurt no longer owns you, no longer shapes your choices, no longer tells your story. You will still feel grief. You will still stumble. But now you will know pain is not identity. Suffering is not meaning. And your truth is not trauma. It's transcendence. You may cry in this realization, not because you're sad, but because you're finally meeting yourself. The self that was never ruined, only hidden. And once you meet that self, you will never again settle for a life built on fear. You will speak even when your voice shakes. You will rest even when the world demands you hustle. You will choose love even when pain begs you to shut down. Because now you know you are not here to suffer. You are here to wake up. And waking up is not the end. It's the beginning. Your freedom is not in the future. It's in this moment, in this breath, in this choice. So breathe and remember, the door was never locked. You just forgot you had the key.